Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. This video is about Deuteronomy chapter 26. So it starts off by talking about how they should bring their first fruits to the priests and that they should verify their commitment to God. It says that they should say that their father was a wandering Aramaean and that God brought them out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with great terrors and with signs and wonders. Now, why is this important? Well, we see in Proverbs 8, it connects things for us, right? It connects wisdom to justice and righteousness, right? Wisdom walks in the way of righteousness on the path of justice. It says that wisdom comes with insight, counsel, sound judgment, spiritual power. Okay, so when we see that the author of Proverbs 16:12 says that the throne is established in righteousness, New Living Translation, justice. Right, we see that it's established in all these principles because wisdom walks in the way of righteousness along the path of justice. So the throne is established in wisdom, righteousness, justice, counsel, sound judgment, insight, spiritual power. Okay, obviously the Lord weighs the heart, the motives, the life. So the throne is established in the martial art principles. Again, martial arts are life paths. Even with the English, we see that they tended to emphasize fencing historically because they wanted to have something similar to martial arts, but it's not quite the same thing. Okay, we'll be talking about how the racial competition in reality is over and how what's important is doing God's work and telling the truth about things in another video. But to understand Deuteronomy 26, we have to understand why they are told to emphasize God's martial might, right? His mighty hand and outstretched arm. It's like somebody with a club striking you, right? When their arm is outstretched, it's a mighty blow. Or somebody with an axe or a sword, okay? So it goes back to the sharp double-edged sword of Scripture, God's mighty spirit, His mighty martial power. There's some kind of clicking noise in the background in the sink. Hopefully that didn't distract you too much. Let's just finish this chapter up here. So it goes on to say that in the third year, the tithe goes to the Levite, the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow. And this is called the sacred portion. Again, it goes to the Levite, the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow. Right, so it's 1/10 of their first fruits would have it. In verse 16, it says that the Lord your God commands you this day to follow these decrees and laws and to observe them with all your heart and with all your soul. You see how the greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart and all your soul. We see in Deuteronomy 26:16, write down that verse. It's very key. Put it on your wall. It says that they have to follow God's commands with all their heart and all their soul. Does that mean following me, Christ, with all your heart and all your soul? Yes, because God has set me apart for you to follow me. And it goes back to honoring with the first fruits. Are attractive females supposed to submit, all females for good measure? For me to pick one? Yes. And it's a similar logic there as with the Levites. Am I saying this because I'm some kind of, when I'm not a womanizer or something? No. I'm saying this because that's how you honor God. And I am Christ. And that's what's fair and just and right. Especially because other people won't say it. It's to their disgrace that I'm saying this myself. Okay? While they're suppressing my videos. Instead of taking their punishment like a man. Like the white Jew and LGBT communities who colonized the world, wiping out tons of people, taking control of their breeding to a large degree, using tech, breeding, cheating, and generational ill-gotten gains, and disqualifying themselves in terms of being ideal, in terms of being worthy to lead in the process. No offense to anyone, these are the facts here. Bear with me, you'll see that I'm right. I'm going to make a video about that in the future. They also disqualified the Native Americans because they wiped out so many of them and brought them to this kind of to a state of a great disadvantage in terms of numbers, in terms of who's left and why, and so on and so forth. Okay, so immediately we see that. So because it's a martial art challenge, what are the odds that a Native American, right, who's mostly Native American, all Native, would beat everyone else at martial arts they made it so they didn't have a fair, not a fair shot, but they didn't have a shot whatsoever. They weren't really in the running because they weren't in the pressure cooker, right? Where people in Africa, okay, the West Africans went to North Africa and became the bell that rang the loudest against basically almost every race on the planet except for the ones who went far away, right? Islanders, not many of them, not that physically fit, not that mind, body, soul, and spirit physically fit, right? Spiritually fit, mentally fit compared to Africans. Same with Native Americans. Now, I'm not saying this to be racist or racial supremacist. I'm mulatto. I'm saying this because these are the facts here, okay? So we can immediately at first glance say that white, Jew, LGBT, Islanders, and Natives were ruled out by two things. One, white, Jew, and LGBT colonialism, and two, for Natives and Islanders, tend to be very nice people, right? They were ruled out because they were far away from the conflict zone, which forges the best of the best, right? And we'll get to that in a future video here. So again, I'm not saying this to insult anybody. I would have liked to marry somebody with island blood at various points in my life, Native American, what have you. I've had crushes on some of their women, what have you. Now, I say this because it also has everything to do with Deuteronomy 26, where it says, if you obey God and love God with all your heart, if, right? It's part of what they call the Mosaic covenant, which is nearly identical to the Abrahamic covenant. And I made a book called the Book of the Covenant to help you understand that these stories are figurative. It has to do with all of humanity. All of humanity was told by God, if you do the right thing. That's why Noah was chosen, right? So the Noah covenant, if you will, okay, before Abraham was a covenant that included all of humanity. And they superimposed the Semites and the Jews on the people who actually received the covenant after some point in history that Noah superimposed on, where it was made definitive that one group of people was closer to God than the rest. Okay, after hundreds of thousands of years or however long. Okay, that's what that's about. So anyway, it says, if you follow these commands with all your heart, you'll be put above all other peoples of the earth. Now, logic would tell you, right, that if you don't, whoever does will be put over all the other people of the earth. So we see with, the Martin Luther King point of reference, Nelson Mandela, somebody said about him, right? We see Obama was the first person of color to be president. And that doesn't mean that much because, it's politics and that, but it's why exactly that is. Because people are looking to the soul brother for the solution, right? They wanted to prevent the rise of a black messiah and COINTELPRO. It's well known, no offense to anybody, that black people as a group go beyond other groups in terms of the spectrum, right? Okay, but it ends with me because of tech breeding, cheating, and generational ill-gotten gains. See, the white Jew and LGBT took control of the breeding of the peoples of the world. And where they ended up at and why, what, when, where, how, why, made it so that it is over. And with, obvious facts, my martial art insight, God guided me through sabotage, what have you. Even the people who are sabotaging me agree, okay, some of them racial supremacists, that it ends after my flesh dies. Okay, so the racial competition is over. And because my patriarchal line followed God with all their heart, okay, and then, now that's not entirely that simple. It's not like my dad and his two brothers did so. My dad, basically, yeah. His two brothers, not so much. Okay, their children, not so much. My two brothers, not so much. So it ends with me. So it's not like, everyone who's from my patriarchal line is magically saved. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not a racial supremacist. I'm not a family-based supremacist. Okay, and again, just like it may be sad to say that about Natives and Islanders, and to some degree, white, Jew, and LGBT, even though they're persecuting me every day, it makes me even more sad to say that about my own family. But it ends after my flesh dies. What makes it so I'm sad, but my loyalty is to God and all the righteous in the spiritual realm, me, to some degree my parents, they mourn as they see my soul at the right hand of God, coming on the clouds of heaven, coming on what is a kind of natural barrier for people who are blind, spiritually blind, to see God. Okay, coming with great power, with great martial might. Okay, and a bunch of jealous people trying to interfere, like, they're basically, I'm gonna have to kind of say it like a sissy gay person would say it, something to help you understand how pathetic they're being. They're like, I don't want him to say that, interfere. So why they're doing that? Okay, why they're doing that like a coward. I'm coming on the clouds of heaven. And they've subdued you people and your peoples and your groups and your religions. And they have you in that spirit of acting like that because you've accepted the boundaries. They're saying to you, you know, gays, sissies in the governing class, racists, whites and Jews, they're saying, don't you dare take his side. And you better, and they're telling you to stay in their damn sissy spirit while this is playing out. That's what's going on. Doubt it not. So I'm at the right hand of God, coming on the clouds of heaven, spiritually speaking. That's where my soul is. And God's power is coming through me, and people are wasting away while they're in rebellion. And every day, 189,000 or so are their souls are being marshaled to hell, to the essence of hell, to eternal disgrace and failure. So all the angels, all the righteous who have died in the divine order, they're mourning on the new heaven and new earth, okay, because they're sad that all these people failed. So all the peoples on the actual earth in the spiritual realm, right? Jerusalem in heaven is the Jerusalem of the righteous. The earth with God is the earth of the righteous, not this physical planet. It's lost in sin. So they're mourning as they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. He with an eye sees, he with an ear sees, he who has a soul to be alive sees.